I grew up and still live outside a small town in California's Central Valley. In 1970, we didn't lock our doors. In 2018, I have 6 guard dogs. What did it mean to you continuing to live in Selma, that small town south of Fresno, and what was it that happened in Selma between 1970 and 2018 that made you
Oh, how about this
open?
week? So this week,
Okay.
the last 4 days, there were 3 miles from me, somebody was driving. He made a U-turn in the middle of the road and killed somebody who happened to be Mexican-American. And then he got out of the car and left. 4 miles north of town, somebody ran a stop sign and hit a trucker, almost killed him, and got out of the car and left. Last night, 2 miles from me, a man on a bicycle was shot and killed. I ride a bicycle, I used to, around my area. So what I'm getting at is when you bring in a lot of people from southern Mexico, the poorest part, and most of the people coming in our area are from Oaxaca, and they're not legal, and they do not speak English, and they don't have skills, and they don't have capital, and they don't have a high school diploma, and you do it in mass, so they're not with Punjabis and African Americans and whites, so they can integrate. We know what makes the melting pot work: measured, meritocratic, diverse immigration. Then you're going to have a socioeconomic problem, and you're going to need a lot of state help, education, law enforcement, legal help to give the semblance of parity, and it's not going to work very well. So what happened, and you combine that with globalization and what I would call latifundia, with corporate agriculture, or economies of scale and vertical integration. So what I'm saying
So
is,
when you grew up, I just want to draw, when you were growing up, you were which generation at that ranch? You were
I was number 5.
5th generation Swedes at that ranch in Selma.
Yeah.
And your mom and dad ran, what, a couple hundred acres?
120 acres.
120 acres.
And we all worked on it. But here's the point.
And that would have been a fairly standard size.
It looked like a checkers board. Every little
family
square.
ranches and family farms.
The Kosigians were on one side, the Onos were on the other, the Israelians, the Hazelhoffers, the Arnst. It was real diversity, by the way. Mexican-American, Armenian-American, Japanese-American, Punjabi-American. Okay.
And since that time,
they're gone.
Two things have happened. One is globalization
Yes.
has made it impossible to run a family operation economically. Is that correct?
Yeah, I rent my 40 acres out to a wonderful man who has 12,000 acres of almonds. He's a wonderful guy, but he has 12,000 acres of almonds. And
so the family operation is just
so what happened
gone.
to all these houses? Well, all these houses are still there, but they're rented by people from Mexico. So one of across the street from me, the Norteños gang just had a shootout, and it was wild. And I mean, I won't mention it because I don't want to be shot, but I have 3 neighbors that are in gangs. So that's what happened.
So the second thing is that you get this huge influx, largely,
Yes.
substantially illegal,
Yeah.
and nobody voted for that.
Nobody voted
That takes
for it.
place, to the contrary, that takes place in defiance of the
And
law.
remember, there was
right?
no principle to it. So when you go back and see Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Chuck Schumer railing against illegal immigration, it was still 100,000 people a year, and they were worried about undercutting wages.
Right.
And when Cesar Chavez was trying to organize agriculture, he went down
here in California.
Yes, he went down to the border with clubs and tried to stop people from coming because he felt that illegal immigration would drive down wages, and he was right. So all of this influx came, and wages went down for workers, and as part of globalization, employers liked it, and the Fruhoff trailer went, the Upright Harvester went, anything, the Del Monte Cannery went, they were all shut down or went overseas. The middle class moved out. The people bought all the land on top, very medieval in California, and then very cheap labor came in from Mexico or South America. I have no problem with that. What I really get angry about, what changed Schumer and Pelosi and Bill Clinton, was the idea there's now so many people 20 million perhaps are Ivy League studies. And the second generation,
20 million in California or in
no,
the country?
Nationwide that came here illegally,
Right,
and
right,
they're
right.
second generation, some case third generation.
Right.
And they're going to vote Democratic, so they flip California, they flip Nevada, they flip New Mexico in from a red to blue or purple to blue state. So it was a political decision. It wasn't based on the merits. Sanctuary cities became the gospel when they felt that that was a winning political issue.
Okay.
But it wasn't based on a principle that people coming in should be illegal.
The name of the town again is Selma, your town, where 5 generations of Hanson, 6 now, have lived. Selma's remaining native poorer whites, ethnics, and second and third generation Mexican Americans who would not or could not leave live in a town that has been transformed. Those changes were mostly a result of the laxity of immigration enforcement and import of expensive labor, as you've just described, and globalized trade policy, as which you've also spoken about. Their once prosperous and stable community did not deserve to erode. Something bad happened to decent people through no fault of their own.
Oh.
And because you live there, you saw it with your own eyes.
I did. And another thing I saw is that, and this is a heresy to say, that some of the people who got hurt the most were Mexican Americans, second and third generation.
Yes.
Because in their neighborhoods, this influx went into their schools. And suddenly, they didn't have very good advanced placement because a third of the student body couldn't speak English. Or suddenly, a Norteños or Sureños or M13 gang member would make fun of a second generation Mexican American because he could not speak Spanish. Or he'd call him a term in Spanish for a sellout or Uncle Tom or something of that nature. And so when Trump came along, for all of the sensational racialized tension that we were supposed to think that he harbored for Mexico and Mexican Americans, 30%, he did as well as Mitt Romney or John McCain. And I have a feeling in the next election he could get 35 to 45% of the Hispanic vote. Now that just seems crazy. But when you talk to people on the ground, they'll say things like, I got very tired of this family of gang members from Oaxaca, so I called ICE up. They deported them, and now they're calling me on a cell phone from Oaxaca and threatening me. What am I going to do? I hear that. Or a person just said to me, I was in Walmart, and they said, did you read about this guy who just ran a stop sign and hit a truck and then he took off? I said, yes. He said, same thing happened to me. These are not Atherton residents. Atherton residents or Malibu residents want that system to continue. I mean, I shouldn't say that, that's unfair. They want the factors or the ideas or the principles that can lead to that to continue. But the people who really suffer...
And they will pay no price.
Yeah, they have walls, they put their kids in prep schools, they have guaranteed jobs, yeah. But the people who suffer the consequences of those ideologies are often Mexican Americans.